What's up, everybody? How y'all doing tonight? I didn't get a chance to make a video earlier today. I was busy, but let's try to do a little bit of a roundup. All right, let's take a look at the last couple of days of Seahawks news and try to parse out the meaningful stuff. I know there was a little bit of a press conference with a few returning or new Seahawks yesterday. I think yesterday afternoon. Thought about talking about it, but honestly, most of it is just them saying the generic things that you would expect anybody to say in that situation. Drew Lock, he talked about how he thinks the offense is going to be similar to the offense he ran his rookie year in Denver. Talked about how COVID and having new offensive coordinators every year messed him up in Denver. Stuff like that. Look, you listen to Drew Lock talking at that press conference, and you can almost trick yourself into believing that, hey, this is going to go somewhere. I like this guy. I think this guy's the guy. And then the season gets here and you watch him play and you realize that he's high-end backup at best. So I'm not really going to get into that stuff because I'm not going to try to encourage anybody to believe that Drew Lock is the guy. I'm not. Rashad Penny came out and said some stuff as well. Quentin Jefferson talked about playing in a 3-4 a little bit. I think we had, we had one or two other guys come out and say some stuff, but nothing of tremendous substance. So if you want to go watch all that, you can go ahead and do so. But for the most part, I think they just said the things that you're going to say when you land with a new team or re-sign with a former team. Mostly just complimentary stuff, optimistic stuff, encouraging stuff. But I don't like to get too deep into that stuff because, again, you listen to that stuff too much, you start to fall for it. And then you start talking yourself into, oh, Drew Lock is going to be a above average quarterback this year. And no. Let them prove it on the field. And I'm willing to do that with a guy like Drew Lock, but I have a feeling it's not going to end well. So about the only thing that came out of that sequence of press conferences that caught my attention, Rashad Penny could not stop saying how excited he is to be back in Seattle. And boy, is that good to hear right now because it's some stuff that I'm going to get into in a minute here. And some of the stuff we've been dealing with for a while now. But we got some salary cap updates, and I want to talk about this for a little bit because we've kind of been waiting on some of the contract news, specifically around Quandre Diggs. So Quandre Diggs' cap hit for 2022 per over the cap is $5.8 million. $5.8 million for Quandre Diggs. Less than the first-year cap hit for Nwosu. And about almost as much as Rashad Penny's first-year contract, actually. So pretty cheap cap hit in 2022. Now, if my math is correct, Quandre Diggs signed a $40 million contract. We were told that the last year of that contract is $12 million. Don't know if that's still accurate or not. So that means that second year is pretty fat. Don't know what to really make of that, but Quandre Diggs is actually coming at a pretty reasonable cost for 2021 at least, 2022, so I guess we can be happy about that. I think that's actually pretty much what he had as a cap hit in 2021. But anyway, you get past these cap hits, Nwosu 6.3, Penny 5.5, apparently, 5.5, apparently it's a little less than the 5.75. You add it all up, Quentin Jefferson in here too as well. Apparently, we are currently sitting with $16.5 million in cap space. With our draft picks, because we already know what's going on there, we already know what we have, the number 9 overall, we have 2 second-rounders, etc., it's actually 9.9. So call it 10, and then you got to save some money for the practice squad and injuries. So it's right now nominally 10, but really, I'd say it's more like 5, maybe 6. So if you want to sign Akeem Hicks, you can probably do that. But you're not going to be able to do too much else than that unless you start moving money around. And we've already been told that this team doesn't really like to do that. So let me just put it out there right now. You're probably not going to see a whole lot more from this front office this offseason. And I want to be clear, I'm totally fine with that. I actually don't have a problem with it here. This should be a chill offseason while we try to get our ducks in order in the draft. I don't want to be spending big money right now. Like, even Teron Armstead signed for a lot less than I thought he was going to sign for earlier today. He signed with the Dolphins for $15 million a year, which shocks me. But I still didn't want him. I still wouldn't have even wanted him for that. Well, no, we don't need to do that at this point. We would have been kind of handcuffed into doing that if we kept Wilson, I think. But now that we don't have Wilson, and now that we're taking this more supposedly long-term approach, which that's what this looks like to me, you can afford to mess around in the draft. You can afford to mess around with cheaper options to try to get something that sticks. But anyway, $9.9 million in cap space after the draft pick consideration, and then you've got to take off $4 or $5 million for practice squad and injuries that are going to happen during the season. So you could fit in Akeem Hicks and maybe one more mid-level player. Maybe somebody gets cut June 1st and you go after them. Maybe a post-June 1st designated cut. But not a whole lot else. And again, totally fine with that. This should be a chill free agency period at this point. All right, going over a couple other things of interest. Pete actually had a press conference today. I want to talk about some of the things he said because they're interesting. Not necessarily that they're really important to figure out, but they're interesting. So Carroll talked a lot about the Wilson trade. And look, it doesn't matter why Wilson's gone or how Wilson's gone. The only thing that matters is that he's gone, and everybody's going to feel their own way about it. Some people are really sad. Some people are really excited. Some people are somewhere in the middle. But Carroll continues to beat this drum that it wasn't from their side. It was from Wilson's side. He said of the Wilson trade that I had no intention of making a move at all and that I fought for the logic of that for a good while until it didn't seem meaningful to stick with that. Going on, upon hearing that Russ said that he wanted out, the coach tried to convince the quarterback to stay. Says there were compelling reasons to stay. Pete says he fought for those reasons until his efforts were futile. So basically what he's trying to say is that Russell Wilson made it clear that he wanted to get traded, and he tried to convince him to stay, and Wilson could not be convinced. And if you've seen Russell's press conference when he first got to Denver, the stories don't really line up, do they? Wilson seems to insist that it didn't generate from him, that he wasn't the one who wanted this, and that flies directly in the face of this. So, look, not that it matters, but who are we going to believe here? Who do you believe? Who do you believe? Just a fun little exercise down in the comments. I don't know. Who do you believe? Did the front office and coaching staff want to move on from Wilson, or did Wilson say, get me out of here? Now, I'll say this. It's hard for me to believe that you couldn't have done something to keep him. So that part of it I don't buy. If you had made a promise, a commitment to do things differently here, I think you would have responded to that. If you had made a promise or a guarantee of being willing to give a little bit more in terms of things like building the offensive line and giving him some degree of input in the way this roster is put together, you probably could have gotten it to work. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. The dude was done in Green Bay. The dude was so done, he was ready to retire just to get out of there. And when Green Bay figured that out, they threw so much stuff at him, they got him to change his mind and extend his contract there. Like, this time last year, Aaron Rodgers looked like he was going to retire because he was so sick of Green Bay. And then Green Bay managed to get him all the way to the point where he's willing to extend. So, hard for me to believe you really did everything you could have to keep him around to the degree that you can convince me that you wanted him. That being said, I do suspect that Wilson was the origin point of these trade desires. So I guess I don't believe either of them really, but I guess I believe Carroll a little bit more here. What I'm not buying from Carroll's camp is this idea that he tried really hard to make it work. I think that his attitude was more, okay, my way or the highway, so you don't want to do it my way anymore, get out. Maybe he made some half-hearted attempt to say, no, we're going to be good, but I don't think he actually was willing to reconsider anything. And look, on one level, I want to be clear. You don't want to give players GM powers. That's what happened with LeBron James. That's why the Lakers suck this year. But I do believe there if Carroll really wanted Wilson to stay, there's something he could have done, I think, to make this situation a lot better. Maybe it was something he would have had to have done last year, but I don't know. And also we have this from Greg Bell. The Seahawks would have gone through it to the end and would have been willing to make Wilson the highest paid NFL player ever. And Wilson made it clear to the team he was not going to re-sign with Seattle no matter what. Oh, I don't know. I don't know who I believe less here. On the one hand, you have the franchise tag, right? Like Wilson has to know that if he refuses to resign and the team really wants him back, they can just slap the tag on him, and then what are you going to do? So hard for me to believe that he would be willing to take that stand and expect that to be effective. On the other hand, I just don't think Carroll would actually be okay giving Wilson that monster contract when A, he hasn't played that well for the last year and a half, B, Carroll's kind of made it a bi-weekly habit of throwing Wilson under the bus in post-game press conferences, so it's not like there's a lot of obvious love there. And C, he's not a player on the defense, so of course Carroll doesn't want to make a big investment in him. So I don't know who I believe less here, but I find this back and forth to be kind of fascinating. And I guess I don't really believe either of them at the end of the day. I don't think Carroll really bent over backwards or really did much of anything to be offering to be flexible to keep Wilson happy. But I don't think that Carroll was the guy who wanted to trade him. I think his attitude was more like, nah, I'll just keep doing what I do, and I'll assume that Wilson's just going to be cool with it because he's a chill, laid-back guy. So I'm interested to see where this back and forth goes. I'm interested to see who writes a book about it in 10 years or 20 years. But I don't know. I don't really know who to believe here. I think both of them are just trying to paint themselves in the best possible light, and there's probably a lot of BS from both sides. We also had this, and this is just more of an interest point to me from Condota. Carroll noting how big Seattle's draft is next year with 2 1s and 2 2s. Seahawks definitely still appear to be looking long term with the Wilson move, and I want to talk about this. So you talk about next year's draft, and that's a big deal. We got 2 1s and 2 2s. That's really good. That's a lot of capital in what I mean, every draft has good players, right? But this looks to be a pretty good draft in 2023. So if you're trying to talk that stuff up, you are thinking long term. But then I go back to that press conference he had last week, where he's talking about he said something like, "We don't believe in long term thinking. We're trying to win now. We want to win now. That's how we do things around here. We're not rebuilding. This is not a rebuild and start from scratch. No, we're gonna." So I'm trying to figure out what the right mentality is here. Honestly, I'm trying to figure out what the right mentality is to have, because when I hear Carroll say what he said in that press conference, it that's kind of the standard I feel like I need to hold him to. But I look at what we're doing, and I look at the situation we find ourselves in, and I really want to rebuild. I really want to wait the Rams and the Cardinals out a little bit here and blow it up and come back after the Rams are done, after the Cardinals are done, maybe after the Packers are done too, by the way. I know there are going to be other teams on the come up, like maybe the Bears, but the point is, a lot of these teams are in our division. Our division is not fun right now. So, I don't know. If we're really, really bad this year, I'm actually going to be kind of okay with that in a way, because it sets us up really nicely for 2023. But I don't think I'm going to be able to disconnect the season that we have from what Carroll said in that press conference. And maybe he was just saying it to try to get season ticket holders to buy season tickets. But I mean, that's kind of a dirtbag thing to do if so. So I don't know. How do you guys looking at this? How are you guys looking at this? I hear all these things. I see all these things that make it look like we're thinking long term. But then Carroll comes out and says, we don't believe in that. And it's just like, ugh, what to believe. Okay, so off the topic of all that, I want to talk about one little point of annoyance. Trent Brown did go back to New England and signed a deal with the base value of $13 million. So Trent Brown basically signed for $6.5 million a year. I hope we offered more than that. But my sense is that we probably did offer more than that. And by the way, I mean, it's a 2-year deal, so that would have fit in fine with our plan. It sure seems like Trent Brown just used us to figure out what he could get. And he went back to New England and may have taken less money to stay there. Not helping with this whole idea of players not really want to play for Pete, not really wanting to play for Pete, right? Just saying. One last thing I want to go over here real quick. Carroll talking about Chris Carson. There was a lot of stuff he said in this press conference that I don't think is really comment worthy. But one thing he said was, if Chris makes it back to us and he's ready to roll too, what a great 1-2 punch those guys are. The compelling part of this to me is he says, if Chris makes it back. And he's ready to roll. So it's almost like those two things are separate. So I'm hoping... I'm hoping that this means that the Chris Carson thing could still go either way. I'm hoping that if they look at Chris Carson's medicals and see what I'm afraid they're going to see, if they look at his likelihood of having a worse neck injury and determine that it's, non-trivial, I'm hoping that this team still has that as a possibility, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. We save $3.5 million if we let Carson go, but that's honestly not even the biggest thing for me. I just feel like this ends really badly. I don't like the idea of Chris Carson going out there, coming off that neck injury that he had, and trying to play power back football again. So, honestly, I know it seems like kind of a small thing to worry about, but I like Carson. He's been one of our better players over the last 5 years overall. He's been very productive. We got great value out of him in the 7th round. He's somebody who I never doubted his passion for the game, and I'd hate to see it end the way that it ended with Ricardo Lockett. So this actually fills me with a little bit of optimism that maybe there is some understanding that Chris might not make it back and that he might not be on the team in 2022, and I think that would be for the best. All right, we kind of spun around a whole bunch of different topics in this video. We talked about Cap, the Wilson stuff, Trent Brown, Chris Carson, but I just wanted to give a quick update on all these things because I didn't feel like making one video about them, so let's just mash them all together. More draft stuff in the morning. See you guys then. Peace out. Go Hawks.